They cracked the most guarded secret in history. Every message, every plan, every move. American codebreakers read Japan's orders before their own commanders did, but what they discovered changed everything. One decoded message revealed a trap that could have ended the war early. Another exposed a mission so dangerous, even reading it felt like a death sentence. What they said after breaking the final code? It still sends chills down your spine. December 1941. A small room in Hawaii. A team of American codebreakers stared at a message they just decoded. Their hands were shaking. One of them whispered, "We're reading their mail." For months, they had been working on something called Purple. It was Japan's most secret communication system. No one thought it could be broken, but these men did it. They cracked the code. Now, every message sent from Tokyo, they could read. Every order, every plan, every secret instruction flowing across the Pacific. The Japanese believed their communications were impossible to intercept. They were wrong. One codebreaker said something that day that nobody forgot. He looked at his team and said, "We just became invisible in their war room." But what they were about to discover in those messages, it would reveal something far more dangerous than anyone expected. The first decoded messages were routine. Diplomatic talks, supply routes, nothing alarming. But then one message came through that made everyone stop. It mentioned a location, a specific date, and the phrase, "Climb Mount Niyataka." The codebreakers didn't know what it meant. They passed it to intelligence officers. Days went by, then it happened. December 7th, 1941. The attack everyone feared. Thousands of lives lost in one morning. The message had been a signal, a green light for the mission. One of the codebreakers later said, "We had the key, but we didn't open the door fast enough." The guilt stayed with them. They knew they could read Japan's secrets, but reading them and stopping them, two very different things. After that day, everything changed. The code-breaking team grew. Their mission became critical. But one question haunted them. What else were they missing? Months later, another message arrived. This one was different. It mentioned an operation, a target labeled AF. Nobody knew what AF meant. Was it a base, a city, a ship? The codebreakers argued for days. Then one man had an idea. His name was Joseph Rochefort. He suggested they send out a fake message, a trap. They would make the Japanese reveal what AF really was. His team thought he was crazy, but they tried it anyway. They sent a message saying Midway Island was running low on fresh water. It was a lie, a test. Then they waited. Days passed. Tension built. Finally, a Japanese message came through. It said, "AF is short on water." Rochefort smiled. He knew. AF was Midway. Japan was planning a massive strike there. One codebreaker said, "We just tricked them into telling us their next move." But could they stop what was coming? The Americans now knew where Japan would attack, but they had another problem. The Japanese fleet was huge. Carriers, battleships, hundreds of aircraft. The U.S. had far fewer ships. If they fought head-on, they would lose. The codebreakers kept reading messages. They learned the exact date of the attack, June 4th, 1942. They learned the route the Japanese would take. They even learned the names of the commanders. Every detail was there, laid out in decoded messages. One officer said, "It's like reading their playbook before the game." The U.S. military began preparing. They moved ships quietly, set traps, positioned aircraft, all based on what the codebreakers discovered. But there was a risk. If Japan suspected their codes were broken, they would change everything. The codebreakers had to stay invisible. One wrong move, one leak, and the advantage would disappear. The pressure was massive, and the battle was only days away.
June 4th arrived. The Battle of Midway began. American forces were ready. They knew where the Japanese carriers would be. They knew when to strike. The decoded messages gave them everything. In the first hours, American dive bombers found the Japanese fleet. 4 carriers, all grouped together, vulnerable. The attack was devastating. Within minutes, 3 carriers were burning. By the end of the day, all 4 were gone. Japan lost its strongest naval force. The codebreakers had turned the tide of the war. One of them later said, "We didn't just win a battle. We won because we knew it was coming." It was the first major victory in the Pacific. But the codebreakers couldn't celebrate publicly. Their work was still top secret. No one could know how the U.S. won. If the truth got out, Japan would change their codes, and the advantage would vanish. So they stayed silent. As the war continued, the codebreakers kept reading. Thousands of messages. Some revealed troop movements. Others exposed supply lines. A few messages were personal. Letters from commanders. Complaints. Fears. Doubts. One decoded message revealed something shocking. A high-ranking Japanese admiral was planning to visit frontline troops. The message included his exact flight path, his schedule, even the type of aircraft he would use. American intelligence saw an opportunity. They could intercept him, take out a key leader. But it was risky. If they acted on it, Japan might realize their codes were broken. The decision went all the way to the top, to the president. He approved the mission. American fighters were sent. They found the admiral's plane exactly where the decoded message said it would be. They shot it down. The admiral was eliminated. One codebreaker said, "We just changed the leadership of their entire navy." But at what cost? Japan began to suspect something. Too many losses, too many failed operations. Their military started questioning if their codes were safe. Some officers pushed to change the system, but others believed it was impossible to break. The codebreakers held their breath. If Japan changed their codes, everything would stop. Months of work, years of intelligence, all gone. They kept reading messages, watching for any sign of a switch. But Japan never fully changed the system. They made small updates, added layers, but the core code stayed the same. The codebreakers adapted. They kept reading. One of them said, they trusted their system too much, and that trust cost them the war. By 1945, the codebreakers had read tens of thousands of messages. They knew Japan's strategies, their weaknesses, their desperation. Every decoded message brought the war closer to its end. But one final message would reveal something no one expected. August 1945. A decoded message came through. It was from Tokyo. The tone was different, defeated. It mentioned terms, negotiations, the possibility of ending the war. The codebreakers read it carefully. Japan was considering options to stop fighting, but there was confusion. Some leaders wanted to continue. Others wanted to negotiate. The decoded messages showed internal conflict, arguments, disagreements at the highest levels. One codebreaker said, "We're watching them decide their own fate." Then, after 2 devastating strikes, the final message arrived. Japan would accept terms. The war was over. The codebreakers had read the last official communication of the conflict. Years of work, thousands of messages, all leading to this moment. One of them later said, "We didn't just break their codes, we broke their ability to fight in secret." What the American codebreakers achieved changed warfare forever. They proved that information could be the most powerful weapon of all. The American codebreakers achieved what seemed impossible. Their intelligence breakthrough gave the Allies a strategic advantage that changed history. From magic decrypts to signal intelligence victories, they exposed World War II's secret communications Japan thought were unbreakable. Military code-breaking became the hidden weapon behind Allied victory insights. Historical cryptography proved that wars aren't just won on battlefields. What started as espionage history became the foundation of modern warfare. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought in silence, one decoded message at a time.